There is just one presence, there is just one light, shining in the world like a beacon in the night. There is just one power we all can share, one great power everywhere. One great power, one great love, big as the ocean and the skies up above. One great spirit waiting in prayer, one great power everywhere. There is just one purpose, there is just one spark, burning in our souls like a candle in the dark. There is just one chorus we all can sing, one great power, let it ring. One great power, one great love, big as the ocean and the skies up above. One great spirit waiting in prayer, one great power everywhere. There is one great power everywhere. Here's where we echo, and I say it first and you sing it after. One great power, 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 one great power together. One great power everywhere. There is just one presence, there is just one light, shining in the world like a beacon in the night. There is just one power we all can share, one great power everywhere. One great power, one great love, big as the ocean and the skies up above. One great spirit waiting in prayer, one great power everywhere. Let's do that again. One great power, one great love, big as the ocean and the skies up above. One great spirit waiting in prayer, one great power everywhere. There is one great power everywhere. There is one great power everywhere.
So it's the fourth Sunday of Lent, and our lesson today is letting go of fear. I like this one. My age is none of my business. So please welcome Reverend Mary.
Yes, I thought timeless was a wonderful topic, and you know, Charles Fillmore years ago had put together the Keep a True Lent, which is really our foundational book for Lent, and every year they publish the booklets, but it always goes back to the original words of Charles. And in this fourth week of Lent, he also talked about being ageless. So I thought, well, we'll just stick that in. Maybe you wouldn't mind learning some things about that. But, you know, here we are, the fourth Sunday of Lent. We've been practicing letting go of lots of things, you know, letting go of, what's it say in the booklet, shame and resentment and fear and human ego. And anybody else have stuff you've let go of? Maybe some things in your house, clothes that I took to Compass House. And so this week it's about fear, letting go of fear. And I thought, well, I guess if we're going to talk about it, the first question we ask is, well, what am I afraid of? what scares me? And, you know, I looked up the most common fears and phobias of people in the country. I have one of the ones that's right at the top of the list. I'll admit it. You know what it is? Fear of spiders. Spiders and little bugs, but especially, I'll have to say, centipedes. The more legs, the more scary. Judy will testify, if I get up in the middle of the night and I see one of those guys in the bathtub, she'll usually hear me scream, come get it, you know. So maybe I'm not alone in that. And, what else is on the list? Well, snakes. Yeah, exactly. That's the next one on the list. But fear of heights, fear of flying, fear of dogs, fear of death. Yeah. Fear of flying, I said. Fear of public speaking. They say that's one of the top things for a lot of people. Fear of getting an injection, fear of trying something new. Fear of not having enough money to pay your bills, or fear of something's going to happen. So, fear of what? Fear of heights, yeah. I saw that actually it's not uncommon sometimes for employers to ask somebody in a job interview, what scares you? What's your greatest fear? And sometimes you can see how that might directly relate to the job. I mean, if you're have to climb up on a telephone pole or something, a fear of height it might be good to know whether somebody can do that job or not. Or if you're fear of public speaking and you're going to have to go out and speak to people, then that would be a problem. And but they also just found that generally it's a good behavioral question. It tells you something about a person and how they respond to circumstances. It's a way to get to know somebody. So, I was thinking, I guess we could say today's lesson is really about just say boo and scary on. Stay calm and scary on. But, as I thought about fear, and the reading for today in our Lenten booklet, shows us how Jesus is such a great example, a master teacher for how to, how to deal with our fears, to just say boo and scary on. Consider these things that, he faced directly his fears. He wasn't in denial about it. When he was in the boat with the disciples and the storms were coming and everything was being tossed and turned and they were all freaking out. And they woke Jesus up. And he stood up and he stood there and he stood and he faced the storm. And he said, "Peace, be still." And the storm was calmed. And then there's another story kind of similar in Matthew where Jesus sends the disciples out into the lake so he can go up into the mountain and meditate, I guess, and find a little bit of calm. Pray, it says. And again, the disciples were out in the water, and the boat was being tossed and turned. And then in the dawn, we're told that Jesus comes walking towards the disciples on the water. And it says in Matthew, they cried out, "It's a ghost!" So what do you think Jesus said? Boo! Boo! No, he didn't say that. In one version, in my version of the Bible, he said that. But no, he actually said, take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid. He didn't say boo. But the Lenten booklet shares a lot of other examples, that, when he knew even the worst of what was to come at the end of Holy Week, he chose to walk into Jerusalem. He didn't walk away from the experience, he walked into it. And we're told that he cast out demons, at least 8 or 9 times that's mentioned. And we have lots of examples of him reassuring his followers. And he didn't fear reprisals from the authorities. He was willing to stand up and say, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites." He called out people for not practicing what they were preaching. And so, I thought all of these things we can do when we understand metaphysically what these stories are about. Jesus represents the Christ within each of us, the divine presence, our Christ nature. And fear just is anything that we've made up a story about, that we're, oh no, this is bad, something's going to happen. And so facing, casting out demons is really, demons are just our negative thoughts. It's our fear, our lack of, limitation. It's like we need to say, get behind me, Satan. You're not in charge here. That whatever that thought is that's running our minds, we need to say, no, I'm going to deny, we're going to, weed the garden and pull those things out. And I thought about reassuring his followers. But we need to find ways to reassure ourselves, to give ourselves some comfort and reassurance that all is well. Maybe it's the Myrtle Fillmore statement. What is it? Nothing will disturb the calm peace of my soul. For some of us, that's our go-to statement when stuff comes up. And be careful what we're spreading, what we're circulating. And I thought about followers. Have you ever thought that our followers are also our thoughts? Have you ever noticed how one thought follows another and another and another? When I start to think about something that I'm worried about, well, then I can find another reason to add to that. Oh, and this and this and this and another, and all these other people agree with me that things are going to hell in a handbasket. And pretty soon, you've got a whole crowd of followers in your mind because one thought follows another, and we're on a downward spiral. But what Jesus was, I think, is he was a pattern interrupter. When we're in the midst of one of those crowds, thoughts following, one thought following another, we need something that interrupts the pattern, that says, oh, no, get behind me, Satan. I need to see this in a new way. And then the authorities, not giving in to authorities. Authority is just anybody or anything or an idea that you give your power over to. That we let other people or other thoughts be an authority in our lives when we're meant to be the authority. I'm the authority for what I decide and what I think. Sometimes we do that with doctors. We let them be the authority. I always remember the story that Brother Sam shared about one time a woman that had a diagnosis, and she went to the doctor, and the doctor said, oh boy, it's bad. There isn't anything we can do. You're we're at the end of the rope here. And he just said, doggone it, don't make that doctor the authority in your life. All that doctor is really saying is that he or she has reached the end of their knowledge. They've reached the edge of their understanding of how to deal with this particular circumstance. And so when you're at the limit, then you need to know that it's time to appeal to a higher authority. It's time to look for a different authority other than that doctor. So can we see how Jesus is sort of modeling for us, facing the fear, cast out our demons, reassure ourselves and our thoughts that are running through our minds, and be our own authority. But Jesus did one more thing that I really liked. He had some friends. He called upon his friends. Particularly, he made a friend of Peter. He selected Peter as one of the disciples, and Peter is the disciple that represents faith. And so it's good to remember, and it says this in the Lenten booklet, Jesus saw faith as the antidote to fear. That, fear is, well, what is fear? Fear is, yeah. Did you? Well, our parent, false evidence, but expectations too. We could put a lot of things in there. False evidence appearing real. But faith helps us to see beyond the appearances. It helps us to know, to remind us that it's time to appeal to a higher authority in our lives other than whatever it is in the time. It's faith needs to be in the driver's seat and tell fear to get in the back seat, or maybe even drop off fear by the side of the road. So there's a lot of ways that that unfortunately we live in a world where this, there's fear. Charles Fillmore called it race consciousness, human race consciousness. And it subtly enters into our consciousness in ways that we're not even aware of, so that, we become conditioned by the culture. And one of the big ways this happens is just around our aging process. I'll say that word, aging, our blossoming process. And, the Eric Butterworth has some chapters about this in some of his books, and particularly in, I think, In the Flow of Life or something. But he said, we have been conditioned in our culture to think of life as beginning with birth and then moving downhill toward death. From the day we're born, we begin to die. And he says, that's a great lie. That's not true. That's putting somebody else's ideas into our head. And, he goes on to tell the story about there once was a man that was well into his 80s, and he had this business for many years. But nobody ever thought of him as an older man. Nobody called him Old Pops or Old Man McDonald or anything. And everybody thought of him as, youthful, and they never even thought about, he just had a lot of energy. He loved doing what he did in his business. Well, one day he was having lunch with a group of some of his younger associates, and one of the men finally just said, Mr. McDonald, would you forgive me if I asked you, how old are you anyway? And he was in his 80s, but a smile came across his face, and he just said, son, my age is none of my business. I'm too busy living my life and enjoying life. And so, that was sort of his key to youthful vigor and an attitude toward life. And, we can think about that for ourselves. If somebody asks you, what is your age? What feelings come up? Do you feel embarrassed or shy about saying it, or are you proud? I'm 69 years old. I'll tell you right now, I feel good about it, Okay! Today's not my birthday, but on the other hand, we can think every day is our birthday. It's a brand new baby day, So, we can say it's either none of my business or I'm not afraid to tell you, So we can say our age. You can answer that question in lots of different ways. You can answer it, you can say, well, chronologically, this is how many years I've been on the planet since I was born in this incarnation. Or we can think of it biologically, the age of ourselves, that they've scientifically proven certain lifestyle improvements help us to age backwards. There's actually a program for that, and there are health tests you can take that tell you the biological age of your body. And then there's just, how do you feel emotionally, mentally, spiritually? We can think about what are some of the characteristics of youthfulness. Gosh, I think most of us, all of us here, are living examples of that, that we're living vibrant lives. We get up and come to church on Sunday morning, even when the weather and daylight savings time, we lost an hour last night, but we're optimistic, or we're hopeful, or we're curious about life, or playful, or Charles Fillmore in his 90s, he said, I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm as I leap forth to do those things that are meant to be done by me. He said that when he was like 92 years old. That reflects an attitude toward life that, and then, there's just maturity, spiritual maturity. Sometimes we refer to somebody as an old soul, or they're wise beyond their years. Or maybe that's what people noticed with Jesus when he was 12 years old and his parents discovered they didn't have him with them. They went back and found him in the temple, and he was talking with people about the with the elders and the rabbis about things in the Torah that they said people were amazed at his understanding at a young age. So we can kind of see that there's age and there's age. We can answer this question in lots of ways, and maybe the next time somebody asks you, what age are you? You can say, well, it's none of my business. Or you could say this. I really like this too. It's an African proverb. I'm as old as the moon and the stars, and as young as the trees and the lakes. So, Eric Barber says we can erase from our consciousness this lie about the inevitable decline toward life. Life doesn't grow old. Life doesn't deteriorate. Life doesn't die. Life is eternal and dynamic and ever-flowing. But it can be our attitude about it that changes. So we can see that life is a flowing process. And Charles Fillmore said this. He said, we should ever remember that our youth, which we love so much, never really dies. Sometimes it falls asleep, though, in the realm of subconscious. People grow old because they let their youth idea fall asleep. But by using spiritual understanding, we can awaken that youth idea. I love that, to awaken the idea of youth. And think of life as really a summation of the whole, a flowering experience of fulfillment. It's a time of, I'm going to use this phrase again, transcend and include. We move forward and we release some things and we carry forward what we want to bring into the future. So the question is, well, how do we do it? I came upon an article by Robert Brummett, who's a Unity minister also, and has written a lot of wonderful books and things. And he used this term eldering, and I hadn't heard it before, but now I think about it, of course, we've all heard. Eldering is a perspective that sees aging and the final years of life as another stage of development in our life experience. And it's not really a new idea, it's an ancient concept, and many, I love when Brother Sam comes, he says in the African American tradition, they always honor the elders. Before you begin a meeting or a service or a program, you ask permission of the elders in the room. May I have your permission to start this? It's a way of respecting people's wisdom and experience. And I'm sure in the Native American tradition and other traditions, elders are seen as the ones who carry the traditional wisdom of the community. They're honored. It's their advice and counsel is sought when important decisions have to be made, or they preside over ceremonies and rituals. So eldering is just a perspective that sees, aging as a developmental process. And, we can think about, it's not ignoring that, of course, oftentimes we may experience some diminishment of our physical capabilities, but still, it's accepting the changes that life brings with compassion to care for ourselves and our mind and our body, and not letting our experience of aging define us. So, I think about those 4 things I shared about Jesus facing the fears, casting out the demons, reassuring the followers, and not giving in to authorities. All those things apply to our aging and our aging elderly process. And Robert Brummett suggests that there's 4 ways to do this, looking at life in 4 directions: looking back, looking forward, looking outward, looking inward. And looking outward has to do with harvesting the gifts of our life experience, acknowledging the ways that we've made a difference and all that we've learned, and maybe even making peace with some things that we regret, or forgiving ourselves or others. But most of all, looking back with gratitude for all that has brought us to this moment, that wherever we are in life, we can always be grateful. And then looking forward, I think, would be transcending and including, to think about what's valuable that I want to carry forward and what needs to be released. Sometimes we have family patterns, myths, messages, and beliefs that have been handed down to us about what it means to grow in age. I love Christine Northrup says, stop trash talking about your age. Sometimes we do that. She said she used to go to a hairdresser who was all upset because she was just about to turn 30. And she thought this was awful, Life is over now, but I think it's really about living life, with a spirit of curiosity and inquisitiveness and appreciation. And I think about that woman that did the weaving. We had the weaving exhibit here in July, and she turned 100 years old last year, and she said one of her secrets to still being so alive and vibrant and active and involved in the world is that she was always learning something new. She felt like she could always, that for some reason for her, weaving had become a subject of just endless fascination. And she was always finding something new to do, some new way to, maybe you feel that way about quilting or Reiki, that there's always something that you're excited to want to share or learn. And I think about my grandparents, this was years ago, but, when they started to lose their eyesight, the National Federation of the Blind would send out books on records. Of course, now we can listen to it on Kindle and things, but it was actually, and they'd be on loan, but you'd get these big packages with these records, and so they could listen to books and then send it back and then get another one, and they were always looking forward to learning something new. And then looking outward means community and connection and contribution. All the things that the spirit groups are about, really. But, it's like, loneliness is a major public health issue for a lot of people. The Surgeon General even issued a statement where he raised an alarm about the fact that there's an epidemic of loneliness and social isolation in our society. And that can become worse as we grow older unless we have ways like our spiritual community to connect. And, I just think about my dad. I am so grateful that the last several years of his life, he moved into an apartment building downtown Detroit. And then the apartment building was bought by the local college nearby, and they turned it into a college dormitory. They needed more space for the students. But they decided for my dad, and there were a couple other, so everybody that was renting an apartment, their leases were ended and they had to move out. But they decided to allow my dad, and there was this other woman, Mrs. Cormody, that were old. They just decided to grandfather them in. They said, you could just stay here as long as you want. And my dad lived in that building till the end of his life. And being around young college students and kids that were studying art, and he just thrived on it, and being able to share a meal with young people once in a while. They always had somebody sitting at the front desk in the building, letting people in and out of the building, and that different students had that job, and they had somebody there at that front desk 24 hours a day, and probably 8-hour shifts. And my dad would always make friends with whoever was on the shift, and my dad loved to cook. So whenever if he was making dinner, especially on Sunday night, he would make an extra meal and bring it down to the student working the night shift. And actually what he did, because my dad was on the 12th floor and it was an elevator, when he got a little older, when it was harder to carry the tray down, he would literally put the tray on the floor of the elevator. And then he'd call the guy down at the front desk, your dinner's on the way down, And then the student would go and pick up their dinner off the floor of the elevator. And then when he's done, he'd send the dishes back up to my dad's apartment. But just things like that gave him so much joy and a reason to feel good about continuing to, feel like he was connected with people. So that, and then, the looking inward is maybe our daily word too, timeless moments in the silence. That when we do that, we can identify ourselves we identify with our true nature, with ourselves as a spiritual being, and not our outer circumstances or the condition of our body or things that might cause us to be fearful, worrying, how's this going to work out, or am I going to have enough money, or my health condition, that we instead connect with, as the daily word says, our timeless, ageless, eternal nature, rather than our role in the world. And we experience that awesome presence of infinite life and love and wisdom. And we know that we are one with that presence. So I guess, as Eric Butterworth would say, he wrote the book, but I like what he said too. He said, being ageless is about staying in the flow of life, no matter what your years. Life is for living. And that we can always say, my age is none of my business, because I am as I have always been, in the flow of life. And we can think of every day as a new beginning, a brand new baby day. Every day is our birthday. You could turn to people around you and say, happy birthday. Today's a brand new day. Happy birthday. I am, as I have always been, in the flow of life.
I close my eyes, take a breath, let it out. I am here, present in this moment. Nothing to do, nowhere to be, no need to think or figure it out. I let go of fear to be present in this moment. This precious moment. I close my eyes, take a breath, let it out. I am here, present in this moment.
And so as we enter into this quiet time, relaxing and letting go, we just follow our breath. Allow our breathing to be a little deeper and in sync with the flow of divine life, ever moving in and through and as us. We enter into a sacred inner sanctuary where we have no awareness of time, no words or thoughts are needed, and only a sense of connection. There is only richness in the silence. And so we take a few moments now to be with this awesome presence of infinite life, love, peace, and harmony. In fact, we can quietly affirm to ourselves, I am one with this presence. In timeless moments, in the silence, I discover myself anew. I am the peace that passes all understanding.
I open my eyes, take a breath, let it out. I am here, present in this moment.
And in this place of peace and open-heartedness, we invite Harriet to come forward to lead our prayers today as we include Julie, Ms. Agades, and Joyce, and Carol Schmidley's nephew Alan, and all those who have prayers on their heart. If you want to gently speak their names, Harriet will lead our prayer.
Let's take a few deep cleansing breaths, breathing in God's light and God's love, and exhaling any fears or concerns or anything that could keep you from the here and the now. Now center yourself in your heart center and allow these words to be words coming from deep within your heart. Father, Mother, God, I am so grateful for your presence in my life. I know that I am a pure spiritual being living a human experience. With each and every birthday, there is a new, opens a new chapter in my life. A new chapter of growth, goodness, strength. And I know and do not fear even death, because I know that death is the birth of my new spiritual, fresh experience. And my soul is free to flow and grow. I know that I am never, ever truly alone. You are always with me. And together, we can grow with strength and love. Thank you, God. Amen.
It's a song by Jason Mraz called Living in the Moment. And if I could just share a quick story of one time when I was driving with a friend from Florida up to North Carolina. We were singing this at the top of our lungs, something that we sang together all the time. And then we were so living in the moment, and I looked in the rear view mirror and saw the red flashing lights. So sometimes living in the moment has a, well, it has an adventure to it. So there you go. If this life is one act Why do we lay all these traps? We put 'em right in our path when we just wanna be free. I will not waste my days making up all kinds of ways to worry about all the things that will not happen to me. So I just let go of what I know I don't know, and I know I only do this by living in the moment, living my life easy and breezy, with peace in my mind, with peace in my heart, with peace in my soul. Wherever I'm going, I'm already home, living in the moment. I'm letting myself off the hook for things I've done. I let my past go past, and now I'm having more fun. I'm letting go of the thoughts that do not make me strong, and I believe this way can feel the same for everyone. And if I fall asleep, I know you'll be the one who'll always remind me to live in the moment, to live my life easy and breezy, with peace in my mind, with peace in my heart, with peace in my soul. Wherever I'm going, I'm already home. I can't walk through life facing backwards. I have tried, I've tried more than once to just make sure, and I was denied a future I'd been searching for, spun around and hurt no more. By living in the moment, living my life easy and breezy, with peace in my mind, with peace in my heart, peace in my soul. Wherever I'm going, I'm already home, living in the moment, living my life easy and breezy, peace in my mind, got peace in my heart, peace in my soul.